Thank you so much for extending your invitation, guys. My name is Nozipo. And basically, let me give a brief introduction of myself. I am a normal person, so I'm not a personal finance expert. The reason why I'm doing this is based on my own experience from a couple of years ago, where I was in a very bad place in terms of my finances caused by financial illiteracy. So financial illiteracy is quite common. I think I would say it is the default position of many people. If you've never been taught about money, like how to make money, how to keep money, and how to multiply money, more or less, I'd say you are financially illiterate. And that's the default for everybody, unless you are taught or unless you teach yourself. So I was in the position where obviously financially illiterate, went through 20 years of schooling, I think, if I count all the years I was in school. But I can tell you, when I started working, I had no idea what is tax, what is a tax return, and things that people take for granted, especially my friend Cathwell and his wife. They are in the accounting space, but I studied science, so we were never taught the basics of personal finance. And as a result, I found myself in a lot of trouble financially until I started to teach myself, to dig myself out of the hole. And once I started learning and understanding, I actually was so surprised how simple personal finance concepts are. So it's not as hard as you would have thought. So then I started to share what I was learning with people on my page, etc. And I enjoy what I do. And I speak from a lay person's perspective. So I'm not speaking from an expert point of view. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about personal finance in a troubled world. These are some of the problems that are currently plaguing the world. In 2020, the entire world was hit with this global phenomenon. I don't think anybody needs to be reminded of COVID. And COVID just threw everything out of balance, and life became abnormal. What's happening now? The world's going crazy with interest rates, etc. It's the after effects of COVID, because many companies during COVID, some had to downscale. Some companies actually shut down, and there were major supply issues. So now the world is starting to pick up the pieces, and it's going to take quite a while, especially for us in underdeveloped nations. Then another thing which we didn't need as the world came is the Russian invasion. Everybody knows this, and we're still going to feel the after effects of the invasion because Russia controls part of the Black Sea. The Black Sea is a major trading route for the world. So ships pass through there to either export or import goods. So now if there's a war and people can't just casually just pass by, and say, well, I've got wheat to deliver. It's like, where are you going? And remember, the world is also interconnected. So countries depend on other countries for agricultural goods or oil or whatever it is. So the war is affecting that part. And I still think we're going to feel the after effects, maybe even into the coming years. Then we also have COVID resurging in some parts of China, and China has a very strict stance on COVID policies. So they will shut down entire factories. If there's a COVID outbreak in a town or a city, they just shut everything down. And so there are many international businesses that have got factories in China. So that would affect the manufacturing process. So now the factory's closed, there's nothing being manufactured. That's another problem. And then there's inflation. Inflation being caused by multiple things, but particularly in the US. During COVID, government in the US was printing money like it was Christmas. They had all these stimulus packages that they were giving to businesses, that they were giving to individual people. People during COVID felt a little bit richer, even though it was tough. But people got those COVID relief funds and everybody was spending, well, especially overseas. People were spending a lot of money. People started buying cars, people started buying houses, because together with the stimulus checks, the interest rates were also reduced. Borrowing became cheaper, even for us. Now, the thing is, with so much cash circulating in the economy or in the economies, it creates an imbalance because now you've got excess cash compared to the goods that are available. So what happens in that scenario is that more people are competing for fewer goods. This pushes the prices of goods up. That's called inflation. So you've got all this demand, but very little supply. So what the government does in that scenario then, to put the brakes on inflation, they start to increase the interest rates. Yes, people have been crying, does this government think we are rich? But it's a balancing act. If the government just sits back and say, no, we're not going to increase the interest rates, we're just going to let it slide, what's going to end up happening is that we are going to buy bread with 1,000 rand because of the demand on products not being matched by the supply. So it's a balancing act. I'm not an economist, but just know that there's a balance at play, and governments don't raise interest rates to be spiteful. It's actually to control so that the currency doesn't become devalued. And obviously another thing to add to all this mixture is the slow GDP growth. GDP is basically the amount of money that countries earn. Because of COVID and all this conundrum, the economies are not growing. So this is what we are faced with. The default position is that most people panic, and your mind is plagued with fear. So what I would say is the best thing to do for us, for anybody, is to focus on what is in your control. The graphic that you're seeing in front of you, it's by this author. If you like, you can read his book. His name is Carl Richards. He wrote a book called The Behavior Gap. And this graphic is from the book called The Behavior Gap. Basically, in that book, he talks about the behavior of investors. They do the opposite of what they're supposed to do, and etc. Anyway, in that graphic, what you can see are things that matter and things that you can control. Where they overlap, that's what you're supposed to focus on. So what does this mean? It means that there are things that matter, but they are out of your control. So don't focus on that. For example, Russia, it matters, but can you, as a South African Black woman or man, control that? You can't. So it matters, but you can't control it. Don't focus on it. That's what the graphic is saying. And then there are things that you can control, but they don't matter. This graphic is saying, focus on what matters and focus what is within your control. So now we're going to discuss on the things that you can control and the things that matter in terms of personal finance. So what is it that is within your control or our control? So a lot of times, like what I described with the wars and economies, etc., those are macro meaning big, bigger picture, and usually out of an individual's control. So what I'm going to be discussing now is micro things that are personal. These are things that you as an individual or as a family, it's completely in your control and should be in your control. You control how much you earn. Believe it or not, and I'm going to explain in the slides coming forward, many people have got a victim mentality. If you know me at all, and those who do know me, I don't subscribe to victimhood and victim mentality. You control your budgets. You control how much you spend. You control your debt, your savings, as well as your investments. And I'm going to go through these one by one. You control how much you earn. How much you earn is directly proportional to how easy to replace you are. So guys, I know it feels harsh. Before God, every person, every human being is irreplaceable. You are valuable as a human being. Here, I'm not talking about your humanity. Here, I'm talking about your value in the marketplace, in the job market. How much you earn in the marketplace is related to how valuable you are in terms of your skills. A person who is easy to replace will earn less money than a person who is harder to replace. Again, please don't get offended. This is not to cast judgment on anybody. But when it comes to skills, I'm giving an example here. A person who makes burgers at McDonald's is going to earn less money than an engineer who designs bridges and buildings. Why is that? It's because it's easy to replace the person who makes burgers. The skill is not a very difficult skill. You can teach almost anybody to make a burger. You teach them, set the oven to this temperature or the stove or whatever, and you put in the meat and turn it over after 5 minutes or whatever, and it's done, right? So very little learning curve there. But then an engineer or a neurosurgeon, somebody has spent hours and years studying and perfecting that craft, and they're so few of them, it's hard to find a neurosurgeon who's qualified with experience. So their earning power will be higher than somebody who flips burgers at McDonald's. This is what you should do. You cannot afford to remain complacent. What I mean is this: you cannot stop learning. Some people, the last time they learned anything was when they finished school 10 years ago or 20 years ago or even 30 years ago. If you stop learning, you become stagnant. So your skills, your value stagnates. Others will be moving forward while you are left behind. And if you're not happy with how much you're earning, look at your skills. I know a lot of people who are not happy. They're not happy at all with their salaries. If you're earning too little, do an audit on your skills. What skills have you acquired since your first job? Since you started working 10 years ago or whatever, have you upskilled yourself? What other things have you added to your tools to use in the marketplace? You're not going to be rewarded for being stagnant. People who are rewarded are people who keep on growing, increasing their value, etc. If you want to increase your income, there are two ways to do it. You can do it the formal way, where you will do a course, do some studying and whatever, and like build up your CV, do night school, etc. Some people do that. People do MBAs, people do business studies. People are all constantly studying. That's the formal route. Then there's the informal route. Some people are like, yo, I'm done with school, but I want to earn more money. So they start their own extra sources of income. They're not going to rely on the formal job market to give them an increase or whatever. They're going to find means and ways of earning more money. They will start businesses. They will start selling goods and services, etc. Those are the two ways of actually earning your money. This is in your control, 100%. And one thing that I find very interesting, someone will say they're not earning enough, they don't earn enough money, but they don't do anything about it. You are not happy with your salary or your income. What have you done about it? This is in your power. And what I've observed is that disproportionately, people with lower incomes spend too much time on entertainment. This is not to say that we should become robots and we should not rest, but the time that we spend entertaining ourselves is disproportionately higher to people with higher income. What I'm saying is that sometimes people with lower incomes spend too much time doing things that are not increasing their value in the market. Reevaluate your priorities as a person. If you want to earn more money, how are you spending your time? An hour a day can change your life. An hour learning something, an hour or two, learning something, building a business or whatever it is, but in improving your chances of surviving this tough economy. I'm not saying stop watching TV or whatever, but look at the time you're dedicating to certain things and measure the outcome thereof, right? We must all learn cause and effect. And in this economy, absolutely, you should try, all of us should try to have more than one source of income. One source of income has become dangerously close to zero. We saw this with COVID. A lot of people in 2020, some people lost their jobs completely. Other people, myself included, my salary was cut in half. But the bills were not cut in half. The rent needs to be paid or the bond needs to be paid. Food still needs to be bought. For me, 2020 was a big wake-up call. And I said to myself, what can I do that can actually earn me money? Luckily, I know how to sew. I started sewing and selling stuff. And I just tried so many things. You won't believe it. But just to have that extra source, it's very, very important. One job, one source of income is too close to zero. The next thing that you control is your budget. A lot of people on social media, we love to argue the whole day about politicians and yes, they steal money, etc. They are irresponsible, they waste money. Those are macro issues. You cannot complain about politicians being out of control, but you don't control your own finances. You need to hold yourself accountable with your finances and you need to have a written budget. A lot of people thumbsuck. People spend more time planning outfits to go to church or planning outfits to go to the groove or to the movies than they spend on finances. Everybody needs a budget, and it doesn't matter how little or how much you earn. Everybody. The common excuse that I hear from people is like, but I don't even earn that much money. What is a budget for? And I'm like, you who earns little actually needs a budget more than somebody who earns more, even though everybody needs it. But those with little to maneuver actually need a budget. And guys, a budget is not like a diet. So a lot of people think, yo, if I budget, so now it means I can't spend on things that I like. No, no, no. A budget is not like a diet. A budget just simply is a plan of how you're going to use your money. It actually gives you freedom to spend your money without guilt. You write a budget, and your budget must include even money spent for fun, for going out or eating out or whatever. That must be in your budget. And you do your budget in advance. Personally, I'm OCD. Remember, I said I was very bad with finances. Now, I think I'm good with it. And I think I'm now over the top with the whole planning. I've got a budget for the whole year. It's on my computer. It's a spreadsheet, January to December. So you do your budget in advance, and then your budget is a living document. So it's a document that you must update. You don't write a budget and then put it there just for decoration and go away. Your budget is a living document which you must update each and every time money comes in and money goes out. You decide. Personally, I update my budget almost on a daily basis. For some people, that would be too much. So you can update it once a week. But the point is, your budget must reflect what's going on with your money at any given point in time. And your budget also is an eye-opener. When you have a budget, it shows you your spending habits. And this is an opportunity to see and understand whether are you running out of money truly because, you know, your expenses, your housing, your food, it's expensive, or are you running out of money because you are just spending mindlessly? A budget can show you that because you're looking at your expenses, they're staring at you at the face. Then you can see, I think with me personally, my biggest weakness is pizza. I love pizza. You can just see with the budget, Jay, that no, I think I've had enough pizza for this month. I think I should just stop because I have spent 400 Rand on pizza. I think it's enough. But if you don't keep any records, Nje, and you just spending, you don't even realize that I've spent more than 1,000 Rand on fast food. But then you're saying you don't have enough money. Your budget will help you to cut out unnecessary expenses and also to help you to increase your savings and investments. With me, what I found is having a budget gives you an instant salary increase. Your salary increase will be from your budget because your budget is going to show you the things that you are spending on that are not necessary and that you can cut out. And if you cut that out, that's an instant increase. The next thing that you control is you control how much you spend. We are not mindless robots controlled by our spending. There's a saying that says that money is an excellent servant, but it is a terrible master. We must master our money. We cannot be mastered by money because money is a tyrant. Number one, live and spend below your means. This sounds obvious, ne? It sounds obvious. If you're earning 10,000 Rand, don't spend 15,000 Rand. It sounds obvious, but you'd be shocked how many people live above their means. And I said to you, sometimes people live above their means, maybe they don't earn enough. And I said, if you don't earn enough, what have you done to increase your income that is within your control? If you don't earn enough money, you have to make a plan to increase your income. And if you increase your income, you need to live below that income. Live and spend below your means. There must always be a gap in your budget. Never spend 100% of your income. Never. You must leave room. You must leave room for your bond increasing. You must leave room for your rent increasing. You must leave room for those interest rates when they increase your car installments. There must be room. The other thing is there are three main expenses in almost everybody's life. If you can take care and control your spending on these big three, you will have a little bit of a breathing room. The big three are your housing, your transport, and your food. Where you stay, according to experts, they say you must not pay more than 35% of your income on housing, not 70%. Where you live is very important and how much you're spending on where you're living. If you're not married, perhaps maybe you can consider sharing, or if you're blessed with parents who live closer to where you work, etc., maybe you can live at home and obviously help at home. Don't be a leech. Transport, second of the big three. With transport, we need transport to get from A to be. That's it. We are not looking for admiration. We are not looking to stroke our egos. Whatever transport you're using, it's serving the utility of getting you from A to B. When I just look out, when I just go out and stand by the road and see the cars that are driving there, I know that those cars, they were not bought cash. I know it. The cars on our roads, they don't reflect our income levels. People are overspending on transport. You don't need 2,000 horsepower to get to work. And I think petrol is solving that problem for many people, or it will solve that issue. Look for a second-hand car with a lower mileage, which is reasonable. Your car, rule of thumb, must not cost more than 20% of your income in terms of the repayments and everything. Then lastly, it's food. A lot of people spend a lot of money on food, especially on takeaways. The best food is the one that's made at home. Homemade meals are cheaper. Even if you like fast food, you'd rather prepare it at home. It'll still be cheaper. Buy the fast food ingredients and make it at home. It'll cost you less than buying it from a takeaway and a restaurant place. Carry food to work. Avoid lifestyle creep, guys. Lifestyle creep is where you start earning more. You get a salary increase, you get a bonus, and you don't even see where did this increase go. Avoid lifestyle creep where your expenses increase with your income. This is very, very common. And it happens gradually. You get an increase, you're like, I think this phone, I think I deserve an upgrade. You upgrade. Next thing, I think if I'm shopping at whichever clothing shop, that's common. Let me go to Zara or whatever. You're always leveling up and leveling up and leveling up. Obviously, you need a certain level of comfort. I'm not saying live like a university student when you are now working, but exercise some control there. The surplus that you earn must be going towards your savings, your investments, which I'll talk about in the next slides. Also, avoid status games. Guys, thought that peer pressure ended in high school. No, in adulting, I think it's even worse because the peer pressure in adulting costs thousands. You're competing with your colleagues, you're competing with your friends, you're competing with your relatives. You cannot be outdone. When your cousin or your friend or your enemy buys a car, you cannot be left behind. You must also catch up. When your friend goes to a holiday in Spain, next year you're going to France. This game does not end because there'll be always somebody with a better car than you, a better house than you. Their kids go to a better school, they go to better holidays. If you're always competing with other people, you will never win that game. You'll never. Just live your life. And if you've got friends that are competitive in terms of materials and stuff, maybe you should start looking for new friends. And then lastly, practice gratitude and contentment. More stuff, you guys can actually go and look this up. There has been research done to say that stuff does not make us happy. You might think you need that new whatever. Oh, I need this new dress. Oh, I saw this wonderful purse. Oh, I saw this. Stuff creates clutter, not only where you live, but also in your mind. You're always having to think of all the stuff that is around you, where to put it. And when you're cleaning, you're now having to move these things that you bought. These things are bothering you. You don't even have a proper place to store them. They're just filled everywhere. It's a mess and there's no space in your house. More stuff doesn't make you happy. What researchers have found makes us happy is experiences. Experiences can be traveling, spending time with friends, spending time with family, even helping other people. Those are the things that make us happy. The best memories that you have. Just think of the best memories that you have. I bet you none of them include buying stuff. I bet you. Most of the memories that we have, you remember your childhood, your best friend, those are experience, contentment, and gratitude. Be grateful for what you have. There is somebody out there who has got less than what you have, and they are happy. Remember that before you go on the next spending spree. And then you also control your debt. Avoid bad debt. What is bad debt. Bad debt is debt taken purely for consumption. So this is debt that is not going to bring you any income. It is just not going to do anything for you except cost you a lot of money. Debt for food, for clothes. The clothes one is a killer because I did this. I took out a loan for clothes when I started working. I was like, I think, you know, when you start working, you're thinking your wardrobe must be tip top. And I went out on a shopping spree with debt, obviously, bought clothes. Some of those clothes, I never wore them because I never liked them. I liked them when they were hanging on the hanger. But then after some time, I'm like, I actually don't like this. But then I still had to pay for it. And I paid for it for so long. And some of the times paying for clothes which have already faded, or they're torn, or you've gained weight, they don't fit you anymore, but you still need to pay for them because it's debt. Paying for gadgets, furniture. Guys, you don't need furniture to survive. You don't. So don't take debt for consumption. And then there's neutral debt. There's bad debt, neutral debt, and there's good debt, quote unquote. Neutral debt is debt for things like cars, because we need transport, houses, because people need a place to stay. But with neutral debt, be careful. It doesn't mean that if you can buy a car with debt, it means you must max it out, take the highest debt possible. Don't. Even with the house, borrow as little as possible and pay it off as quickly as possible. The bank will say, oh, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. or Miss, you qualify for a 1 million rand house. It doesn't mean you must go and look for houses that are R1 million. If you qualify for a 1 million house, why don't you buy a house that's cheaper than that? And then use the same installment that you were going to use for the 1 million house and use it on the 600,000 house or the 800,000 house and pay it off as quickly as possible. A house, guys, it's for utility, it's for shelter. Nothing more, nothing less. With cars, those who can should buy cash. If you can, buy it cash. If you cannot, you can take the debt, but borrow as little as possible. Then there's good debt. Good debt, quote unquote, and I'll explain why. This kind of debt is the debt that can be used to make more money. So for example, a business loan, or you get a loan for buying rental property, which you're going to rent it out and it's going to pay you monthly. But again, at the end of the day, which I wrote in green there, debt is still debt. Don't get it twisted. Even with the good debt, remember those of you who were of age in 2008, some people were in primary school or high school. But when the global financial crisis happened, mostly it was because of the good debt. The banks were very generous with lending anybody and everybody, and people were buying houses, businesses were buying, things were good. But then at the end of the day, people got burnt. Debt increases your risk significantly, even if it's for business or property. Because if anything goes wrong, those debts still need to be paid. Be careful, even with good debt. Make sure if anything goes wrong, you can still cover the debt from your own pocket. The ideal position for everybody is complete freedom from debt. That's the ideal position. I know people say, yes, you can make money from debt, etc., etc. But most people are not in debt for good debt. I can tell you that one. Most people are in debt for neutral debt and for bad debt. That's the debt which people are crying about when Lesija Kganyago increases the repo rate. They are not crying about their business debts and rental properties. They are crying for the cars, for their homes where they stay, and they're crying for their credit cards and clothing installments going higher. Then the other thing that you control is your savings. Your budget should include savings. All of us need to save. We cannot live paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, even if it means saving just 1% of your salary. Start there. Start. You cannot be earning and you're not saving. You can't do that. One of the things that you should be saving for is for emergencies. The rule of thumb is that you should aim to save between 3 to 6 months or even more of your living expenses. What does this mean? What this means is that if my expenses, like my rent, groceries, expenses that you need to survive. This is not your chocolates, your takeaways. This is your life and death matters. You should save 3 or 6 months worth of those expenses, so that if you lose your job, you do not become homeless immediately. You do not start starving immediately. You've got that leeway, that 3 to 6 months. And I'm saying even more because in South Africa, you can actually spend longer time looking for another job. depending on your skills as well. If your skills are in demand, it's easier to find a job. Maybe 3 to 6 months is fine. But if you know, Uti, you struggled to get your job, you were praying, you were fasting, you were calling the pastor to come lay hands on you, and you finally got a job. You know it's a struggle to get a job. Your emergency fund must be more. Because if you lose that job, to find the next one is going to be hard, right? You want a cushion in between that time of losing your job and finding your next one. People are like, so where am I going to get 3 to 6 months of my expenses? How am I going to do that? You start little by little, but you need to start. You set yourself targets in your budget. You say, okay, my target is in the next 2 months, I want to put away 1,000 Rand to my emergencies, or whatever is within your affordability, but make sure you are putting money away into your emergency fund. And guys, clothing sales are not emergencies. Somebody actually sent me a message and said, Nozi, I saw this couch. I've been dying for this couch. Can I use my emergency fund? I'm like, no. Can you live without the couch? Yes. So it's not an emergency. Don't use your emergency fund for birthdays. A birthday is not an emergency. For weddings, weddings are not emergencies. People usually know when they are getting married. It's not like something which just pops out of the blue. Emergency fund are strictly for emergency only. And then also you must save for your short-term needs and pay cash. Guys, cash is king. Save for those smallanyana purchases that you know you're going to need. You know you're going to need a new couch sooner or later. You can see the kids have been jumping on this couch. It's starting to look nasty and stuff. Start to put away money. Don't make it a surprise to say, oh, the couch is now broken. Now you're going to Bradlow's or whatever to take out debt for a couch. You don't need to take debt for furniture. Absolutely not. Save and pay cash. For your holidays, you know, in December, we are traveling or whatever, put money away. If you want to buy a home, if you want to buy a car, save for a deposit. These things you need to plan for. This is within your control. And then you also control your investments. Your budget should include long-term investments. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of questions. It's fine. You can ask during Q&A. Investing is needed, especially because of inflation. Because of inflation, prices of goods and services go up. I don't even have to tell you. Fuel in this country goes up every month. And then there's other things that are going up, cooking oil, etc., etc. That's inflation. And what inflation does is that you start to feel out of pocket. This small pool of money is now shrinking because a bigger and bigger chunk is going to fuel. A bigger and bigger chunk is going to whatever. Those are the effects of inflation. Inflation takes away the buying power of your money. In order for you to survive and not be destitute, you need to actually invest for the future, so that in the future you can afford cooking oil, you can still afford whatever you'll be buying in the future. Examples of investments are the easiest way to invest. The easiest and most accessible for many, many people, especially those who are employed, it's retirement funds. I know there's arguments against retirement funds. I know that there are pros and cons, but I'm telling you about the easiest. So we'll start with easy things. Retirement funds. Your employer has got retirement funds, pension funds, etc. And if you are self-employed or you want to invest on your own on the side, you can have retirement annuities which you open on your own. The second way would be doing your self-managed investments. So your self-managed investments is where you invest on your own. You go and buy unit trusts from an asset manager, or you go and buy shares on your own. You go and buy retail bonds or rental properties, businesses, etc. This must form part of your budget. And when you're investing for your long-term needs, like your financial independence, retirement, children's education, generational wealth, etc., etc., etc. Guys, just a word with investing, and I'm touching on financial independence. The point of us going to work is not just to pay bills. Well, it's part of it, but it's not the entire reason why we go to work. The reason why you go to work is so you earn money, and that money should be able to buy you the most valuable asset, which is your time. People who are financially independent. So what is financial independence? Financial independence is the state where you don't need a job. It's the state where your investments can take care of you. What financial independence does is that it's not that if you become financially independent, you'll stop working. It's you will work if you want to. It will no longer be this thing of you are forced, where come rain or shine. Part of earning money is so that we can eventually become independent, not dependent all the time. And by the way, a lot of people are like, I know financial independence, I don't think it's a realistic goal. Well, unfortunately, sooner or later, you'll be forced to stop working. Whether you are financially independent or not, there's going to come a date and a time where you will stop working. And at that point, you must be financially independent. You should be. But unfortunately, I read a 10X report about retirement. It says only 6% of South Africans can afford to retire. It means 94%, which is almost the entire country, right? Can't afford it. Because why? They are not financially independent. It means the money that they have in their investments is simply not enough to take care of them when they stop working. So financial independence is an absolute must to achieve, and it will be nice to achieve it sooner rather than later. And this comes with controlling your investments. And how some people do it is that this is obviously not a recommendation, but some people literally invest half of their salaries or more so that they reach financial independence sooner rather than later. I know in the personal finance or financial planning world, they say you must save 10% and then you must invest 15%. If you invest 15% starting from when you are 25 years old, it'll take you 40 years to reach financial independence, more or less. So if the boat has sailed, okay, many of us on this platform, I'm sure we are not 25 anymore. So that 15% boat has sailed. So 15% is not going to make it if you didn't start when you were 25 years old. You need to invest much more than that for financial independence. That was my last slide. Now I'll open up for comments and questions. This is my most favorite part where people get to interact. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Nozi. I'm also sitting with other men here. I think there's how many of us here? There's 7 of us where we are. So thank you so much for the powerful presentation. So everyone, this is the time and place and moment where you raise up your hands, and we will be looking at the screen to see whose hand is up first. You can ask Nozi any question. Lindani, you will go first. You can ask her any question that you have with regards to personal finances. Lindani, it's your moment. Go ahead.
Hi there, and hi everyone. Hi Nozi. No, I don't have a question. I just want to thank you. I mean, this is really valuable information. I've never had education that is so vital in one's life simplified the way that Nozi simplified it. So I just want to thank you, and I'm going to look into her Facebook page to see if there are any more books that I can buy to further my education, so in financial literacy. So I just want to thank you a lot.
Thank you so much, Lindani. Oh, there's a hand here where I am, so I'll hand over.
Just 2 questions from me. The first question relates to people. I think as you are presenting, maybe amongst the people who are listening, there is somebody who's already seriously in debt, and they are wondering how they can come. I like to describe the situation of being heavily in debt as that of a besieged city. In a besieged city scenario, you've got the invading forces wanting to get into the city, and the people inside the city trying to come out of the city and find a place that is safe. So I think it's the same thing with debt. Those who don't have debt are trying by all means to see if they can clean their records to get debt, or those who already can get debt are busy trying to get themselves into debt. But those who are in debt know exactly what you're talking about, and they're trying to come out. Now, if somebody is in that situation and they're living on one income, so what that does is it will not allow you to further develop yourself, whether educational, all those things that you mentioned, trying to come up with a second revenue stream. You will not do it if you're already heavily indebted, because the money that you could possibly use to maybe start maybe something that you can do on the side, a side hustle to give you an extra income. You can't, because everything is going to the, this guy is phone left, right, and center. You've even try to, run away from some of them, but unfortunately. So what would you advise somebody who's in that situation? Is it maybe stopping that debt and maybe identifying something that you can use with that money so that you can get more income, and then with that income that will liberate you to even pay that debt much quicker because now you've got a second money stream? How does one, free themselves from such a situation? And then the second regards investment. One thing that I've picked also in the financial services or financial industry is that nowadays there's a very thin line between investment and gambling. And a lot of people are falling into the trap of, okay, we hear what you're saying, I'm going to try and, get some kind of an investment. Boom, they get into some kind of gambling bracket and they lose everything, If you can just maybe enlighten us on what it is that we can look out for when we're trying to find a way of investing.
All
You
right.
can answer that first, and then we will go to Mengezi, and then we'll also hit the chat. Yeah, you can answer that first.
Okay, thank you so much, Amengezi. Those were brilliant questions. So let's tackle the debt one first. How do you get out of debt? If you're in debt, how do you get out? So what you need to do, and a lot of people have found that when they are in debt, they actually don't know their true situation. They hide from their true situation. So firstly, what you need to do, you need to look at your financial situation, get your statements and lay them out on the table or on the floor or whatever. If the table is too small to fit everything, put it on the floor. And you must know exactly who do you owe. So some people have got debts. They don't even know the name of the company that they are owing. They don't even know because they are scared. So number one, lay it out and see who you're owing. How much do you owe on each of those balances? Thirdly, what is the interest being charged on all of those accounts? You must know that. If you don't know, call them. So someone once said to me, oh, Nozi, I'm paying an account for X and I don't know the interest. And I said, did you call them? No, I didn't call them. Why? And there's no reason. Call your providers if you don't know how much interest you're being charged. And did you know that you can negotiate? So a lot of us do not negotiate. You can try. The worst that they can say is no. But you'll be surprised. You can negotiate and say, hey guys, can you please just take it down a notch? And you'll be surprised. Some of them will actually take down your interest. And then now you need to see whether this debt that you're paying, is it affecting your ability to pay for other things like your bond or your rent and being able to buy food. So literally you are drowning. So there's debt where, yes, you are in debt, but you can still get by. But then there's that kind of debt which is crushing, like you have to decide either to pay the account or to buy food. I'll deal with these two situations one after the other. So the first one is the debt that you're in. It's irritating you, but you can still buy food. You can still pay your rent. With that kind of debt, you need to literally cut out expenses. So for me, I was in debt for 2 years. So I decided I'm not going to buy myself any new clothes. I decided to focus on that debt. I attacked it, and all my extra money, any surplus that I had, any bonuses that I got just went to that debt because I wanted it gone. You can walk into debt, but you can't walk out. You decide how long you stay in debt is absolutely your choice. If you want to carry the debt and nurse it and massage and keep it on you, for me, I wanted it gone as quickly. And guys, remember, this is temporary. So some people are like, yo, so now it means I can't enjoy my life. I can't, hey. It's up to you. If you've got loads of debt and you still want to live as if you don't have debt, that's your problem. If you are serious, even an extra 500 Rand goes a long way. So maybe look at paying extra into your debts. If you have many debts, so you can't pay extra on all of them at the same time, start with the lowest debt. This is called the snowball method, where you start paying off your debt from the smallest one to the largest one. What you do is you list your debts from smallest to largest. Then on your smallest debt, you will pay extra. So you're still paying the normal minimum amounts required for all of your debts. Guys, don't ever stop paying your debts. That's asking for more trouble. Pay the minimum that's required on all of them. But on the smallest one, pay extra. Even if it's 50 Rand extra from your budget or 100 Rand until you finish it. Once the smallest debt is finished, this is not time to now take that money and go buy pizza. You take that money that you were using for the small debt plus the extra and put it in the next smallest debt. The next debt in line, you're now putting the normal installment for that debt plus the installment for the previous debt which you closed plus the extra. Then you finish that next one. Then the next one, you do the same. So you take the 2 installments for the previous one and the one that you just closed plus extra money and throw it into the next one until you finish all of your debts. This is called the snowball method. This method is more emotional than mathematical. So mathematically, for those who are nerds, I know maybe someone is a mathematics genius, they're like, that's the worst way to do it. So mathematically, that one would be the slower way of doing things. It would make more sense to get rid of your biggest and most expensive debt. But we are also emotional creatures, and sometimes we need to see that small progress to keep us going so that we don't give up. Instead of trying to attack the 500,000 personal loan, just start with your credit card where you are owing 5,000. That motivation to keep you going on to the next one. If this is how you are built, you must know yourself. If you know every time you do something, you need a yay, then go for the debt snowball. But if you are mathematical, you just like things to be done surgically and stuff, then you do it the other way around, where you pay off the biggest debt first, because that's the most mathematically correct way of doing it, to pay off the most expensive debt going down. So that's the method of paying debt where you are just irritated with the debt, but you can live. But now there's the other debt where you can't even, let me just use a credit card, for example. So now you're like, if I pay credit card, then it means I won't be able to eat this month. Then now you are literally drowning in debt. In that situation, maybe you need to go for debt counseling. But guys, this should be the last resort. Debt counseling, a lot of people thought it's a quick fix. And unfortunately, our generation is so impatient, right? We want everything to disappear. We want our debts to disappear with the click of a finger. We want our investments to grow with the click of a finger. Everything must be quick. It doesn't work like that. Debt review is where now you're saying, I'm throwing in the towel. I can't handle this debt anymore. It's too much for me. So what you would then do, you would contact debt review companies. And guys, please be very, very careful. You need to check that they are registered with the National Credit Regulator, I think, NCR. What the debt review company is going to do, they're going to consolidate all your debts, or they're going to make a deal or pay off your debt for you with all the people that you owe. Then you will only owe them, right? Then they will work out a payment plan. So they're not going to take away your debt. Your debt is still there. You still need to pay it, but then they're going to negotiate and find how much you can afford to pay. Let's say previously you needed to pay 10,000 Rand for all your debts. Then they'll negotiate and say, no, you're not going to pay 10 anymore. You're going to pay 5. But what does that mean? It means you're going to be in debt for longer. Let's say when you were paying the 10,000, you were going to pay off your debt in 3 years. But now that you're paying 5,000, you're going to be in debt for 6 years. So you are elongating the time that you are in debt. And if you default, you stop paying your installments that were agreed, you can be taken to court, etc., etc., etc. And then also when you are in debt review, obviously you can't take on more debt. So I've seen people crying, I went into debt review prematurely. Now I want to buy a house. I can't buy a house because you still have that flag on your name saying you are still in debt review. That flag is removed after you've paid and completed the process. So debt review is your last resort. If you can pay off the debt yourself, do it. Don't try and cheat the system. You cannot cheat the system. Next, let's move on to investing versus gambling. And thank you for asking this question, because a lot of people are actually afraid of investing. They're like, no, investing, it's gambling. I don't want to gamble, especially believers, Christians. They say, no, it's against my belief to gamble, so I'm not going to invest. There is a difference between gambling and investing. Here are the differences. Number one, when you are gambling, you are not buying a product. That's the first thing. So with any investment, because there are so many investments, people are always asking me, they send me inboxes on Facebook, have you heard of this company called Green Crypto? And I'm like, wait, before you ask me which company, if I know it or don't know it, there are principles of actually distinguishing between an investment and something which is not an investment. It's like money, guys. I don't know if I've got No, I don't have money in my pocket right now, but I was going to illustrate with money. With money, ne, how do you know if money is fake or not fake? You need to know the distinguishing features on the real note. So you need to know, what does 100 Rand look like? What does a 10 Rand note look like? What features does it have? What are the security features on a legitimate note? So that when someone comes with a 200 note, you immediately know that this is a fake one. So what do? You need to know, how do real investments work? That's all you need to know. And then that will help you to sift. I know you guys, some of you have heard this before. In order to know the difference between truth and lies, you don't study the lies, you study the truth. Because the lies are too many. We can spend the whole, even decades, we will not finish the lies which are out there. So what do? You study the truth. It's the same with investments. What do true investments have in common? Number one, products. What do I mean by product? When you are investing in property, what is the product? It's the building. It's tangible. You can touch it. That is a product, and it's got utility. Utility means it's being used. It can be used by a business. It can be used by an individual. Utility. An investment, tangible, utility, and you can trace where does the money come from and where does it go. With property, where does money come from? It comes from the person who either buys the property or rents the property. It's not money coming from the air. So when someone says you must join this investment, then you're asking, what is the underlying business or asset? What is it that you are investing into? If there's no answer, then that's not an investment. For anything, I don't care what it is. Even with the stock market, for example, a lot of people say stock market is gambling. Well, some people gamble. What is the stock market? The stock market is a marketplace for businesses, the big public businesses. These are your businesses like Vodacom, MTN, ShopRite, even our banks and all the mining companies, etc. When you buy shares of a company like Vodacom, Vodacom exists. It's a real company. It's not a fake company. So how do those shares make money then? When Vodacom as the company, as the business, makes money, when they're selling their airtime and selling whatever they sell, the shares of Vodacom are tied with the company. If Vodacom as a company is succeeding, those shares are also going to grow in value. So there's a value there. When Vodacom is doing their business properly and they are selling their products, attracting more customers, their shares become more valuable. Also, Vodacom, the company, pays the shareholders dividends. What are dividends? Dividends are profits passed from the company to investors. So there's value there. You can trace the money. Oh, okay, these dividends, they came from Vodacom's earnings. So Vodacom earned so much billion last quarter. And of those so much billion, 10 billion went to investors in the form of dividends. You can actually see it. It's there on their financial statements. But now gambling, there's no product. There's no value. There's no business transaction happening. So the product is you. This is what I always say. An investment which doesn't have a product, it means that you are the product. And sooner or later, you're going to lose money. And guys, there's no such thing as getting rich quickly. There is none. I know some people say, no, but I've got an uncle. He made 20 million when he joined such and such. Yes, those are outliers. There are more people who lose money in get rich quick schemes than those who make money. So the odds are against you. What makes you think you'll be the next one who's going to win that money? But obviously, because these people who do these schemes, they know human psychology, right? They are going to post and show Malume there with his Lamborghini and mention, even maybe it's not even his. They use your greed to lure you. They are posting themselves standing next to a Lamborghini. It's not even theirs. It's not even theirs. And then another way to tell if an investment is legitimate or not is the returns. So on average, how much can you expect as a return from an investment? So if someone is saying invest 4,000 Rand and you'll get back 70,000 Rand in a week, your alarm bells must immediately go off. Guys, there's nothing like that. There is nothing like that. So sometimes Our greed overclouds our judgment. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't invest into those things, but people get greedy and they're just thinking of the Lamborghini and just thinking of the champagne or whatever they're thinking of, and they just dive headfirst. So the returns must be realistic. What is realistic? If you save, okay, saving is not investing, but I'm giving an example. If you save your money with the banks, the interest rates that you can expect from there, 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, 8%, etc. There are some banks that offer slightly higher than that, but it's not something that would make you jump out of your chair. Even with investments, with property, on average means we take all of the property investments in South Africa, all of them, Western Cape, KZN, Gauteng, everywhere, and we consolidate and say, how much on the whole does property give to investors? This information is there on the South African Savings Institute. On average, property gives between 8 to 10% annually in returns. So it means you invest 100,000 in property, annually you should expect at least maybe 10,000. That's property. What about shares? Shares are slightly higher than properties. In America, the S&P 500, which represents 85% of the American stock market, no, 75% of the American stock market, it's about, over long term, it's about 10%. That's the American stock market. And by the way, the American stock market is the biggest stock market in the world. South Africa, our market is slightly more riskier than the American one, so our returns are also slightly better. With the South African stock market, you can expect returns of between 13 to 15% on average. So those are your property, your stocks, which are businesses. Then someone is going to come to you in WhatsApp and say you are going to get 200% returns in a year. Already, your red flags must start to go off because the investments that are known, that have stood the test of time, do not even give those returns. So what makes you think, what are they investing in that's going to give you 400% or 200% guaranteed? The higher the returns, the greater the risk. And if there's no product, I've already said this, then you are the product. With investing, you need to develop a long-term mindset. We don't invest for next week. We don't invest for 6 months. We don't invest for next year. Investments are for 5 years and above. That's what we're talking about here. So in 6 months, that's lottery gambling. That's not investing. Investing, it's for years. I needed to emphasize it, but I think I've overdone it. Over to you. I think there's another hand there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nozi. I have a feeling that we should have booked you for more time, but yeah, this stuff is just getting interesting. So we've got 2 more hands. I'll start with Mengezi and then I'll come to Sipokazi. And then, yeah, so Mengezi, it's your turn. You can go ahead.
Greetings, Nozi and the team. Thank you so much. It's very eye-opening. I recently started in this journey of financial awareness, very clueless about a lot of things. You were recommended to me by a friend. So I've bought some books and I'm still learning a few things. So I just want to check is it okay as a beginner, because I didn't have any understanding on how to buy shares and all of that. So since last year, I've been using the Frank app. So I want to check if you do recommend that app. Number 2, on the point you were talking about in terms of negotiating your interest rate on your debt, I want to ask is it possible to do negotiations on your interest rate if maybe you've been paying for your car for the past 12 months? That question will be, what would you suggest or what are your recommendations in helping someone to pay off their car faster? The last one will be, do you have some kind of mentorship programs or master classes and all of that? So that will be it. Thank you so much.
Sipokazi, is your turn. You can also ask the question. And then after that, it will be Memasikela. So I don't have to come back. You can just go chronologically like that.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
You.
Okay. Thank you, Sis Nozi, for everything. I've been following you, I think, since 2020, and you have helped me so much. And my question is, for me, I've actually mastered the debt part. I can say the only debt that I have now is just my bond, which I have like a whole calculation of I want to pay it in the next 2 years. And then I've done like my budget and whatever the extra payments that I have to make for me to reach that goal. But then now, because this is the annoying bit that I don't even have any emergency fund. I don't have any like retirement annuity. I don't have any, what you call it? I don't have like, I'm not investing or saving or anything. So literally every 10 rand that I have now, it goes there with the mentality that if I pay more each and every month, I'm actually saving in inverted commas, because now I'm not going to pay the same interest that I will actually be paying in the remaining 18 years that I still have. And the other, like the psychology is that even if maybe, let's say I don't have enough when I retire, maybe I'll be having maybe 2 properties paid off, and then I will have like, I can actually sell my other property as a form of a retirement. Let's say I would actually maybe sell it for 1.5 million, and then that will actually sustain me in my retirement years or something like that. But then I'm also afraid, because each and every time I see you on Facebook, you keep on preaching the investing part of it, of which on my other side, I don't know what to do like right now. Like if you can just give me like some scenarios if I'm doing this and doing that, like how is it gonna work like in the next 5 or something years? Because to be honest, I know I'm supposed to put something as little as you said, like 1% of my salary. But then now I'm just thinking that 1% of my salary can actually decrease my monthly repayment on my bond. And also with the repo rate and everything, prime rate going up, like it will actually go a long way. Thank you so much.
Dineo, you can ask your question.
Okay, sorry about that. I think Mema Sikela is at a funeral, but she's trying to listen in. So I received a question from a related party to her, and he's asking, is Bitcoin a product? So I don't know if that is the question she maybe wanted to ask, but if she's hearing this, she's welcome to unmute and ask the question. So the other question I received from this side was also about Forex trading. Is it also valid, those kind of stuff? So Bitcoin and Forex, if maybe you have any input on that. Thanks.
Right, let's go first to Mengezi's question. Can you negotiate interest? Yes, you can. So this will be the discretion of each provider. You can just go to them, speak to them nicely, try to butter them up, and just ask. Like I said, the worst is for them to say no, but at least you can try. If you want to pay off your car loans are very strange. Hey, some car loans are weird, where if you put in extra money, they sometimes don't capitalize it, like they don't use it to reduce your installment. So it depends on each company where you took out your loan. Before putting extra installments with your car, just find out if you put on extra, does it actually reduce your interest or reduce your capital? And then you spoke about the Frank app. Yes, Frank, I know about the Frank app. It's good for beginners. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. The only thing with the Frank app is it offers limited products. So it is a legitimate company. It doesn't have the wider variety and range that you get elsewhere. So if you find with Frank, it's fine. Listen, guys, with investing, you don't need to invest in everything. So there are some people who want to buy Bitcoin and this one and this one. And you don't have to invest in everything. Absolutely not. You just choose a few things. You must obviously be diversified, meaning you are not over concentrating your investments maybe into one company, like you buying MTN only or you buying Vodacom only. Your investments must be nicely spread, but you don't have to buy everything. Please, guys, stay away from FOMO, fear of missing out. There are some things that I don't invest in. So I get inboxes, people are asking, what do you think about investing in art? What do you think about investing in this? And I'm like, slow down and invest in what you already have. Just focus on adding on that. So don't scatter. You want to take 1,000 Rand and then you're putting 10 Rand in Bitcoin and 10 Rand in. Then in the end, it's like your investments are so scattered, you're not going to make any progress financially. So focus, guys, focus. And do I have mentorship? Yes, I do. I've got a Facebook page, I've got a YouTube channel, and I also offer lessons in my spare time after work. So people book me and stuff, and I don't give advice. I'm not an advisor. I don't say, oh, this is what you must do or that. I just offer education, so the basics. So people ask me questions like, how do you start investing on easy equities, for example? Then I'll show you how to do it. So I'm more of a practical teacher, but I'm not going to be advising you on gold and doing all those things. That one, you need to speak to a financial advisor. I also have ebooks for those who prefer to read. Now, let's talk about the other question from Musupuazi about having a house. And I'm happy that you asked this question. That's a position of many, many people. Many people have got houses and that's all they have. They don't care about retirement funds or other stuff or whatever. The debt on your house, I would say, remember, it's a neutral debt, and debt with your bond is not expensive debt. What I mean is it's not debt which grows insanely out of control, unless if we get hyperinflation or something like that. But under normal circumstances, your bond is pretty much going to more or less stay the same. Your payments on average more or less are going to stay the same for the longest time. Now, the danger of not having emergency funds. So emergency funds, it's like a self-insurance. You're insuring yourself against mishaps of life. So people lose jobs, there are medical emergencies. If you've got a car, your car needs replacing of tires now and again. You need to replace the tire, or you need to replace something, or you need to buy a new phone. There is no need for you to take debt for such things. Really, there is no need. And your emergency fund, it's for emergencies. And sometimes it sounds counterintuitive, like, no, why don't I just get rid of debt and then I'll deal with emergencies later? But unfortunately, emergencies don't wait for you to be out of debt. That's not how life works, right? Life doesn't say, oh, shame, she's in debt, shame. We're going to give her a break for now. In fact, what happens is that life is going to happen to you while you're having that debt. And then what? Especially people in debt, you need an emergency fund. I was speaking to another client of mine that I was coaching. She also has investment property for students, and she doesn't have an emergency fund. And I'm not saying anything about students, but they broke the doors or whatever was going on, and she needed to replace that. She didn't have the money. And I was like, you see, you need an emergency fund so that if the door breaks or whatever happens, you've got the funds to cover that cost. Because emergency don't announce themselves. They certainly are not going to wait for you to pay off the debt. Now, with bonds, some people have got what are called access bonds. An access bond is just a facility with your bond where you can put extra payments and you can withdraw the money if you need it at a later point. Some people use access bonds as their emergency funds. But not so long ago, somebody had an experience where the bank just took that access bond and capitalized it. The bank can do that. Especially now, a lot of people are defaulting on their home loans and interest rates are rising. Banks will do stuff to protect themselves. Right? So be careful. You need an emergency fund in a savings account. That's the safest. Now, when it comes to investments, I'm biased. Okay, so whatever I'm saying, just remember that I'm not a financial advisor, but I honestly believe that all of us should have some stock market investments, even if it's not self-managed. I know some people are like, I don't even want to know what is a stock. You can invest with professionals. So these are your retirement annuities or your unit trusts with asset managers. You are investing in the market, not yourself, but somebody else is doing it for you. The reason why is because houses are called illiquid assets. What I mean is a house, you can't just sell it at the drop of the hat. If you want money next month, you can't say, oh, I'm going to sell my house and then I'm going to take the money and use it next month. Sometimes your house can be in the market for a very, very long time. And also the market value of the house. Yeah. Remember, over the years, depending on how much you bought the house for and how much work you've put in it and how much extra and maintenance, etc., you might find out that you never made any money on the house. So if you subtract the effect of inflation, you subtract the cost that went into maintaining the house. Remember, a house needs a lot of maintenance. If you count the cost of your rates and your taxes that went into the house, some people will find out that when they're selling their houses, they're not even breaking even in terms of when you've spent over the years 1 million on the house, and when you sell it, you're getting 1.5. So it actually means you only made 500,000 in terms of when you factor in everything. So I always say you need liquid investments. Shares are liquid. Like if I want to sell my shares now, well, the market is closed, but on Monday, if I want to sell my shares, I can log in, click the sell button, and it's sold. And also, guys, another thing that we don't do is we don't ever think how much money we're going to need in retirement. So you'll find that people think that R1 million is a lot of money. R1 million is not. It's not. Actually, R1 million plus minus is going to give you an income of about 3,000 Rand a month or 4,000. Look at your lifestyle now. Are you going to be able to live on 3,000 Rand when you no longer have an income? That's another thing that you need to think about. When I'm no longer earning, I don't have a salary, I'm not employed, and I only have R1 million, or I sell my house, I get R1 million. Is R1 million enough? Because R1 million is going to give you plus minus 3 to 4,000 Rand in monthly income. And it may be enough for you if you've got a very, very cheap lifestyle, like not cheap, but lower lifestyle. But for most people, it's not going to be enough. So you need to have an emergency fund. Once you build your emergency fund, then you can top up on your bond. Plus, also, please, if you can, have other investments, especially on the stock market. And then Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is an alternative asset, right? It's fairly new. Bitcoin is barely 10 years old. And this is what I don't like about crypto, at the danger of getting hate mail. This is what I don't like about crypto. There have been, since Bitcoin was founded, there have been more than 4,000 coins that have been launched and failed. So blockchain technology might have a use. Let me backtrack a bit and use an example which everybody will understand. So in the late 90s to the early 2000s, there was this craze of the internet. You know, the internet was this amazing new thing, and technology companies were like the future. And you know what started happening? People started investing in technology. Any company which had .com at the end of the name, people would start pouring money into those companies, right? Because technology is the future. People started buying shares, and what happened? The .com bubble burst. So what is a bubble? A bubble is created when people are so enthusiastic about something, they invest into it, drive up the prices because of demand, drive up the prices to ridiculous levels. So in the .com bubble, the .com companies, they were selling for ridiculous amounts of money, right, for one share. And yet the businesses themselves, some of them were not yet even making any money. They hadn't even made their first sale. So somebody just registers a business called nosy.com and lists on the market, and people are buying shares based on the hope that it's going to make money. Since the .com bubble, most of those companies disappeared. Most of them, they never launched, they never took off, even though people had such hopes that they would. So most of those companies disappeared, they're nowhere to be found, and only a few survived. The few that survived were Amazon, Apple, a couple of, you know, the ones that are now like giants today, they survived. But it was so hard to sift between which one. So the thing is, you can't tell the future. Nobody knows the future. A lot of people invested in the .com bubble. When the markets crashed and those companies burned and disappeared, they lost their money. And some people even today don't want to go back into the market. They were burnt. People lost houses. People lost spouses. Because your spouse is going to divorce you if you take money and you put it in this thing, and then it all goes to flames. So here's the thing about crypto. This is what I'm going to say. There might be, or there is, a use case of crypto, but the way it's being done right now, it's like the .com bubble. So eventually the bubble is going to settle. Eventually, then we'll be left with a few. So what's going on right now? There's a new coin being made every single day, guys. Every single day, there's a new coin. Somebody just comes up with a coin. Baibizebati crypto. Next thing, that thing has crashed. Recently, for those of you who follow crypto, that Celsius thingy, the crash of Luna, there have been so many of these coins just popping up everywhere. And most people are going to lose their money. But then eventually things will come down. So I always say to people, if you want to go into crypto, trade with caution. Most of these coins are going to disappear. Most of them are going to be left with a few coins. I always say, if you are curious, if you really want to go in, just put a little bit of money. So don't take your loan from Standard Bank or whatever, and then go and buy crypto. You are going to be burnt, which is what some people are doing. They're going to take loans. And you know what? The other thing about investing is that when people are talking about an investment, that's probably the wrong time to go in. So last year, when Bitcoin reached its peak, that's when celebrities started talking about Bitcoin. That's when the ordinary man on the street, when you see people in jail, even umuntu washimoto is now talking about Bitcoin, then you know the bubble is about to burst. So people, unfortunately, they went into crypto or whatever when it was at its peak, at its highest, when it has gone up and up and up and up and up. That's when people go in because everybody is talking about it, etc. And what happened after that? It crashed. It's so classic. It happens over and over and over again. So the rule of thumb when it comes to investing, stick to what you know, stick to your comfortability levels, stick to your circle of competence. By this, I mean, stick to things that you can understand, that you can explain. If you can't explain to me what is blockchain, you can't explain to me the technology behind this thing, you can't explain to me how is money made, how does Bitcoin make money? So when you are investing in it, where do the returns come from? If you can't explain that to me or anybody else, then I don't think you should be in it. Because when do you know when to get out, or when do you know where to get in? Or so yeah, let's end it there. Forex trading, you are trading currencies. So that's not investing. Investing and trading is completely different. Investing is when you buy an asset like a property or like shares and you hold for the long term. You don't log in to watch the screen of the computer on a daily basis or anything like that. When I'm buying my shares, I transfer money into the investing app, buy my shares, then I go away. They are not going to disappear because I'm not trading, I'm investing. Traders are the ones where your money can disappear. You put 20,000 and then next thing you go to the toilet. When you come back, the 20,000 is now 1,000. That's not investing. I don't have the time. I don't have the skills for it. So I don't trade. If you want to trade, you can go ahead. Please do not buy trading technology. Those people who sell signals or whatever, don't do it. Learn how to trade on your own and do it on your own. Don't buy trading signals. Because guess how they make their money? Through you, right? You're the product. You are the product. I'll end here, guys. As you can see, I can speak and speak, but we've reached the time limit. So let me give over to the host before he says, I never again.
No, Nozi, no. You are blessing everyone. You're blessing us as well. I just wanted to say, Nozi, I think you still have a lot to offer. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy and have a great week ahead. Thank you. Bye.